Dennis Ostick. Let's start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And although yesterday was Veterans Day, we thank our veterans every day. It's now 6:33. My name is Dennis Ostick. I have the honor and privilege of being the current chairman of our town's Economic Development Connect Communities Committee. I now open the public information meeting for Broadband Expansion Project on November the 12th, 2019. Thanks very much for leaving the comforts of your warm homes and traveling here on this chilly evening. We appreciate it. Please allow me to read the public information meeting notice to get some of this stuff out of the way. Public notice is hereby given that on Tuesday, November 12, 2019 at 6:30 p.m., the Economic Development Connect Communities Committee of the Town of Boulder Junction will hold a public information meeting at the Boulder Junction Community Center in the Boulder Lake Room. The purpose of the meeting is to allow information to be presented regarding the expansion of affordable and high-speed internet in Boulder Junction, and to answer public questions and comments relating to this topic. The public is encouraged to attend and participate in the meeting. A quorum of town board members and other town committee members may be in attendance at this meeting for information gathering purposes only, and no town board or town committee action will be taken at this meeting. Thank you. This is the 8th public information meeting that has been conducted since May the 24th, 2019. Your feedback from each of the previous information meetings has been invaluable. Our community has been presented with an opportunity to enhance its connection to the internet. I will now ask Bill Nemeth to describe the details. Thank you.
Thanks, Dennis. And I'm only mic'd up tonight because of the recording, so that's why Steve and I are going to have mics. All right, let's get a little levity before we start. It was cold today, right? It was a little on the cold side. Here's some good news. The lowest average temperature in Rhinelander in January is 22 degrees for a high, 5 degrees for a low. It's gonna warm up. It will warm up. Well, welcome. As Dennis said, this is the 8th session that we've had, and the feedback, one of the key reasons why we are conducting these sessions is to provide you with the information that we've learned throughout this project. We've also used it to get feedback from our residents and our taxpayers in the town as to what we should do from a broadband perspective. Last week, we had 2 public information meetings, and we asked for feedback. We had three options. That's 4. 3 options. One option was a 2020 plan, which would provide high-speed broadband to a part of the town, and I'll be talking more about that project this evening. That was option 1. And then part of that option then is future years, 4 additional years to cover the entire town. But the option was only for 1 year. Option 2, to cover the entire township of Boulder Junction with high-speed broadband in 2 years. And then option 3, to do nothing. This is the feedback we received. We had 10 people who supported option 1. That's that longer multi-year plan. We had 49 people who supported option 2, that's doing the entire township in 2 years. And then we had 1 to do nothing. We're gonna be asking for your feedback tonight again, just to make sure that our work group is going in the right direction. So keep your feedback coming, please. All right, here is our agenda this evening. We're gonna talk about the status of the broadband project, give you all the information that we have, and this is updated as to the options that we have to bring high-speed broadband to Boulder Junction. We'll talk about potential 2020 projects, talk about some pros and cons, have some questions and answers. We do have a dedicated time for questions and answers, but we have found these sessions are invaluable when we just have a conversation. And then we'll get the feedback, talk about next steps, and we do have a lot of information from previous meetings. If we need to go back and refer to any of that information in the slides. We started this process of this journey back in November of 2018. And up until today, we have had 7 public information sessions. We have received and continue to refine estimated costs and design concepts from CenturyLink. We've also reached out and looked at other options that are available, and there aren't many. So we've really focused our time and concentration on CenturyLink. We're sharing the status with you today, and this is the most recent update. We're giving this to you, and we're really ready, and on Thursday night for Boulder Junction to make a decision about the direction we go with high-speed broadband. Dennis talked about an opportunity for Boulder Junction. Let me give you a little context on what that opportunity is. We know that high-speed broadband is a focus for the United States, especially in rural areas, and it's a major focus for the state of Wisconsin as well. Rural areas lag behind urban areas at an astronomical rate. In Wisconsin, the Public Service Commission has authorized 2 years of grants totaling $48 million. In 2020, $24 million of that will be available. To put this in context, that is more money than the previous 6 years of funding combined. So there's a significant amount of money out there. And the other thing, the second point is, we've tried, and Dennis and Steve and I have talked with the Public Service Commission, and we're trying to get a sense on how, how competitive this funding race is gonna be. And I'll just share a couple of things with you. So we had a training session last week with the PSC, and I asked the question, how many applications do you think you'll get? Trying to, everybody wants to look into a crystal ball. And the gentleman who answered the question started off by saying, hopefully, and then he tailed off. And then he said, we're encouraging everyone we can to apply. Okay? And just the third point for you. In 2018, that was the last funding year for grants, there was $22 million of requests. In 2020, there's $24 million available, okay? So if Boulder Junction has an opportunity to get a grant, and a significant grant, it's 2020 and 2021. Here are the 3 options in detail, and I'll walk through these, and then I'll invite Steve up to kind of go through the maps and give you some more information. Option 1, We're calling this the 2020 plan, which covers the partial town. And that includes CenturyLink fiber optic cable to the premise. And a premise is a living unit, and a living unit can be a business, or it can be a home, or I guess, you know, if you have a reason, you can have a pole building. If you've got a reason to have internet service, you can do that as well. This project covers the village, and we'll show you maps of all of this. The village, Boulder Junction northeast. So if you can kind of view it this way, we're kind of on that south part of Boulder Junction. It would be all the way to the north and northeast. That's that Boulder Junction northeast area. A high density, the highest density of living units we have in the township. South Trout and Man Lake. These are unserved areas. They hardly have any terrestrial, ground-based internet at all. And that's an important point I'll come back to. And then access points. Access points are places in the 62 miles of fiber optic cable that already exist in the township and creating an access point for folks along those routes to connect to. This is a partial plan. There would need to be three other phases, starting in 2020 with this plan, and then going to 2023. And those would require additional funding. Option 1 covers 919 living units. Boulder Junction has 1,353 living units. So if you kind of scroll over here, that's 68% of the total. So that's what I meant about kind of the density of these living units in these areas. The project cost, $3.1 million. That is what we received from CenturyLink. They think that is a pretty tight number. They will also contribute to the project, and their estimated contribution is $715,000. Now, we're hopeful by Thursday night that we have that absolute solid number. They have to put these numbers into a financial tool and give them to us. We don't have that yet. Grant funding from the Public Service Commission. In all of our conversations and kind of reading between the lines and lessening and talking with folks, we believe that in 2020, there is the potential to get $1.25 million in grant funding. And why do we believe that? Up until this point, the largest grant that's been provided to a community has been $800,000, which is a much lower level of grant funding. When we went to a training session offered by the PSC, I asked the question, you know, what do you see with this $24 million? And the answer was, I wouldn't be surprised that in 2020, we see a couple of projects over $1 million in funding. Okay? So this is reading between the lines a little bit. All right, let's just review. 3.1, CenturyLink contributes $715, $1.2 million from the PSC. That leaves $1.2 million for Boulder Junction for this project. Okay. We already talked about the 68%. The tax impact, do we have an update?
Nothing yet.
Okay. The tax impact, we received some information from Baird about what this might look like from a tax perspective. And what you can see in those two right-hand columns is the tax per thousand financing 1.2 million and change for 20 years would be 14 cents per thousand. If we decided to have a shorter financing period, then that goes up to 21 cents per thousand. What does that do to a $200,000 home? It's $28 for 20 years, $45 for 15 years. That's option one. Let me go through option two, and you probably have some questions. Option two is what we're calling the 2020-2021 plan. This is the entire township. It's fiber to the premise in every living unit within the township of Boulder Junction. Doing it in 2 years. 1,353 living units. The price that we received from CenturyLink is $7.5 million. Their contribution would be 1.2. We believe that we would maximize the PSC granting at $2.5 million. 1.25 in 2020, 1.25 in 2021. That leaves $3.8 million Boulder Junction would need to contribute. The tax impact, if we borrowed that money over 20 years, it's 36 cents per thousand. We borrow it for 15 years. Yes, Bill?
Under option one, you're showing a tax impact of $14 per thousand over 20 years and 21 cents per thousand over
14 cents?
0.14, is that correct?
14 cents, yeah.
Yeah. The difference between 20 years of financing and 15 years of financing is increasing the mill rate by 50%. Under option number two, I am sitting in the back of the room, but it looks like it's going from 0.36 to 0.72. That's not a 50% increase, that's a 100% increase. Why?
Well, that was the question I asked. We're trying to get clarification from Barrett.
It would seem to me that a 50% increase, that's an amortization schedule, that's not a.
Well, and I'm gonna show you a slide that we got from them in a moment, which has the same numbers. So we're trying to.
But we're doing $2.6 million more.
Size of the loan shouldn't matter, because you're amortizing a $100,000 house or $1 million house. If you're amortizing it over 15 or 20 years, it would seem to me that the ratio should stay the same.
Yeah,
Size of the loan.
and you're right, Bill, that's the way it seems that way to us as well. We're gonna confirm that by tomorrow and an update for the electors meeting, okay? So this is what we received from the financial folks. When you look at it, it doesn't look quite right, but is there compounding interest built into that? We don't know. We're gonna get the exact number and to give it to you on the 14th. Which is Thursday night. So this is the numbers, these are the numbers we got, $200,000 home for 20 years, $72, and at 15 years, $144. And those are the numbers, as Bill pointed out, that we've got to confirm. So that gives you an idea of the impact. And then option three is to do nothing. And here, there are a bunch of zeros because we wouldn't do anything. We would have no cash outlay. Now the question is, what's the cost to the town if we don't do anything? That's the question. Okay, let's open it up for questions. What questions do you have about these two projects? These morning meetings are a whole lot more, lot more involvement than the evening meetings. All right, no questions. This is the slide, I'll show it. This is the slide from Baird, and this is what they showed us, the 72 and the 36 and the 144 and the 72. So that's what we need to confirm. Something doesn't look right there, but we've got to figure out that financing piece. And Bill, to your point, you know, you'd think you throw this stuff into a tool, boom, it comes out. We gotta confirm it. So Steve, let's look at some maps.
Okay, so this is the first project we looked at, which is the 1-year project. So areas that are shaded in the yellow, those are gonna be areas that are taken care of, fiber to the home, completely done. This is the Boulder area here, downtown, going up north to the high fish trap area, large concentration of people all through there. So it's really good bang for the buck doing that. The area down here, that is South Trout and Man Lake that Bill referenced. They virtually have no service, so we kind of felt compelled to, you want to help people that don't have any service at all, but we find that those are usually pretty expensive, and that's the reason they don't have service. And we also want to maximize the value for the taxpayers, and that's the reason we did a combination of two things, because we kind of have a little bit of a dual mandate there. These red areas here, those are approximate locations of access points. So the way that we have it drawn out is that anybody within 600 feet of one of those potential access points would be able to get fiber at no cost as well. It's a very efficient use of funds. It will be challenging because access point location is somewhat arbitrary. It'll probably be decided by CenturyLink, and everybody's not going to be happy when those things go in. So certainly these areas here are simpler because everybody gets taken care of. Anybody have any questions on the access points or the plan?
You should
Lori?
address the, beyond the 600-foot piece.
Yeah,
for
so
those
if-
who are here that
So
are-
eventually, right, if you wanted to wait, our plan would be to run fiber to every premises over time. But some people are gonna say, you know what, I want it in the first year, even though I'm not within 600 feet of an access point. In that case, you would have to pay for the burial yourself, and that would be at $1.88 a foot, right now today. We don't know what it'll be next year or the year after, but it's $1.88 the last we checked. Because we know some people aren't gonna wanna wait.
And that's only for the access points.
Correct.
The area shaded in orange, it's directly to each residence, each living unit.
Correct.
And then, let's see, I think we had, sorry, sir, you had a question, why don't you go ahead?
Just, the Man Lake area, that access point you show, how far off of M is that? Do you have any idea?
Well, this access point right here is at the University of Wisconsin Limnology Lab. That one right there? Yeah. So we would run it,
Oh, it's not, out of Man, I see what you're saying.
yeah, yeah, so we would run the fiber from here and then down Rocky Reed Plain. Then we'd have to come down M and down to Manway.
Long ways.
It is a long way.
Have to buy in the other end of the township, I guess.
Yeah, and we approached Frontier many, many times. They had no interest in doing anything for you guys.
I don't know, yeah, well, it's another subject, but yeah, I understand.
And the other piece about addressing an unserved area, there are two pieces that the PSC and the Federal Communication Commission also look at. Underserved. So that means anything that has speeds of 25 megabits or under. That's considered an unserved or underserved area. An unserved area, like the South Trout Man Lake area, is an unserved area. That means that their maximum speeds are 5 megabits and lower. And I think in talking with the folks, if they had 5 megabits with this type of service, that would probably be pretty good. And then the last piece that I'll say about the unserved area is when we address unserved areas, the PSC gives us extra points, better scoring, and that helps us with success in the grant submission.
You want to talk about this one?
Steve, before you,
Yep.
go back to the other slide,
Yep.
Bill. Before you move on, an important component of this option is that it provides a alternate route for serving Boulder Junction, and you,
It gets us closer, right? So we know that there's an access point right up here at the DNR office. And so if we run it to the intersection of M and N, we probably have roughly 3 miles to go to get some redundancy.
And that's important, and we've experienced this several times already in 2019, where our internet just goes away. And it goes away for a variety of reasons. Well, one of the reasons is that we only have one connection to the main CenturyLink fiber. And if something happens to that, if somebody hits it with a backhoe, we're out. What Steve's referring to, and you'll see it on the subsequent slide, is getting this loop provides us with an additional level of redundancy. We're still not exactly where we need to go, but we're in a much better place than what we are today. Okay, we're still talking about option one, the 2020 plan. This is the partial town. In order to cover the entire township, we're gonna be in this room again, talking about subsequent years and subsequent phases. 2020 is the phase one, that's the area that we just addressed. In 2021, phase two, we think that this is that's North Trout, Gresham, Wild Rice Island, Clear Big Lakes, is a comparable size project to the 2020 project and covers the vast majority of the remaining living units in Boulder Junction. In 2022, we would look to provide fiber to the premise to the rest of Boulder Junction. And when you have a project this large, there's gonna be some cleanup, some punch list items, maybe somebody who lives, I don't know, a mile and a half off of one of the main roads that we have to address. So we put a phase four in here as well. It's important to note that the funding that we're looking for, that was on that spreadsheet, is only for 2020. And then these subsequent projects, we'd have to get new and updated proposals for each one of those.
Bill, do you have any estimated figures on the cost per living unit for each of the first 3 phases? Clearly, phase 2 and 3, the cost per living unit is much higher.
It is, no question, Dick. We took it off the table, but for this project, phase one, in 2020, the cost per living unit was $1,310. For everything in 2 years, it was like $2,800. But you address a very important issue. It's cheaper per living unit to capture these. The cost per living unit at this phase is gonna be high. But if our commitment is to provide fiber to each residence in the township, we have to bite that bullet. Okay, anything else on option one? Okay, let's get into option two.
Yeah, so an important note on this is just something that CenturyLink threw at us as a potential year one of a 2-year project. I think the thing you're gonna see first is there's no access points on it. The access points add a level of complexity to the project that CenturyLink would prefer not to have, and honestly us helping administer it, we probably prefer to not have that headache as well. If it's a 2-year project, we figure most people can wait, at this point it'll be 20 months to get it, so we figured the access points could be done away with. So here we're doing the same thing we looked at, slightly different map with squared out corners, but this is the town heading to the northeast. We go down to Trout Lake, it's the same thing, except the difference here is that we are going to connect all the way down here, which will take us out to 51, which will give us our redundancy. It also picks up people on Big Muskellunge, and also people on Little John, and also people here on Perch Lane that weren't included in the initial phased project. We're also picking up an area up here, and again, this was CenturyLink's idea just based on what they thought made sense. This area up here is the Boulder West Business District, where Town Line Sports is and Rustic Roadhouse, and so that's an area we're picking up too, and they are pretty underserved to unserved on certain portions of Island Lake on that side. So that probably is a good project. Underserved, way up there on top, that's a little crooked. They virtually have no service from what CenturyLink has told us. So again, we're trying to pick up people that have nothing, along with taking care of as many people as we can. So that would be potential year one project of the 2-year project.
And when we spoke with CenturyLink, you know, we wanted them to tell us what they would do in a year one of a 2-year project, because they're the professionals, they're the ones who can look at it and say it makes sense to do these areas, doesn't make sense to do those. There are construction efficiencies in these types of projects that we don't have a clue about. And this is what they gave us. And they do take our feedback and definitely listen to us, because one of the things that we've been talking about is that fiber optic redundancy that we don't have today. This part of the project addresses it. And then they also know that we have a West Business District that, as Steve said, is unserved today. And that really helps us from the grant funding perspective. We address a lot of different areas in the township in year one of a 2-year project.
Is that area not served by CenturyLink now?
It is served by CenturyLink, yes.
Well, they have a service.
They have service, yeah, actually there's a node, not to get overly technical about it, but there is a node right here at the intersection of Town Line and 51. The problem comes when you start moving down the shoreline on Island Lake. It just gets worse and worse and worse. That's what happens with DSL. And so the people on the end are underserved. It gets better as you get closer to the intersection. And that is what the end of year 2 would look like.
Now, it's important to note, and I think you all, if you're residents of Boulder Junction, you know that, you know, a lot of this area, I think, what is it, 87% is owned by the state of Wisconsin, so there are an awful lot of trees out there. But it would really, this project would cover the entire township, those places that have living units. Questions? Oh, yes, sir.
There's no access point issues on that, or are there still access point issues?
Yeah, an access point is where they connect the fiber lines that are running to your house to the main fiber lines, and so there's access points throughout. They're just not used specifically to handle specific places. They're just put where they need to put them to service everyone.
Well, I might have a unique situation, when we moved up here full-time, in anticipation of that, we have a business up here across the road from us, which is on our property with the same address. We built a facility that we can't get internet to because of the minimum of 10 megabytes per second. Trying to get it there anyway, there's nothing left of the broadband. Would this program, look at putting fiber to both residents and that building?
It's in the township of Boulder Junction?
Yes.
Yes,
Same address?
yes.
But then you'd have 2 bills. You'd probably be better off doing a fixed wireless system from your main house over to the pole barn if you could. It'd save you money. You wouldn't have to pay 2 bills.
That's a really good point. Other questions? Yes.
They're all Man Lake. Frontier has a pedestal there on Man Lake, right off of, from 51 on Man Lake, crossing like the boat landing, which they have fiber optics, I understand, going north, but they would have to upgrade that equipment, I guess quite a cost, and it appears that they Don't ever plan on doing that from information they give us?
I don't believe that they have any fiber running down them at all,
No.
right? So that what you're looking at is just a junction box,
But
yeah,
it's available on the road? or-
on 51.
yeah.
I don't know how far it goes.
Yeah,
to be honest.
that's their data highway, their backbone goes on 51.
And there's no way you can work with them on that, if they don't wanna upgrade what they have to get high-speed internet?
Yeah, they said no to the entire project, right? Because we put it out to bid to everybody and said, okay, whoever's interested, give us your thoughts. And it was about, I don't know, 2 months after, and I called the guy, and he goes, I thought I got back to you. No, we're not interested in doing it. And then the next day, I said, well, how about just helping the people out on Man and South Trout? And he never returned my call, so it's
And Bill-
unfortunate.
Pardon me. I was gonna say, Bill, our experience is Frontier has not been participating with the state grant program.
They have not, for whatever reason, they've chosen not to participate with the Public Service Commission. They just, not sure, but they just haven't been involved. Okay, all right, well, let's move on. We got another spot for questions and answers. Pros and cons about these projects, and, we wanted to show some. We could probably go on all day about pros and cons, but I wanted to address a few of them with you. So option one, this is the partial town. Obviously, it's a lower 2020 cost. We have the highest return on investment area because we maximize the business area, the primary business area, we maximize our living units. It's 68% of the town, and we believe that that's where the majority of the students live. We're covering one unserved area. We haven't talked about federal funding much, but CenturyLink has put 62 miles of fiber optic cable into the roadways of Boulder Junction, or along the roadways of Boulder Junction, with Connect America funds. These are federal funds, federal grants that they received. All of that money has been spent in Boulder Junction. However, it looks like there's another round of federal funding that will be coming, perhaps hitting about 2021. One of the potential benefits of delaying this project is to have CenturyLink secure these funds to lower the town's contribution. You never know about that funding, but that's what this CAF 3 funding potential is. It gives us additional time to seek other funds, to look at other options other than CenturyLink, to bring high-speed broadband to Boulder Junction. It gives us the immediate marketability of our primary area, and we think that it does maximize our PSC funding. The cons? We need to do this again, again, and again. That's just what we'll be doing. Inflationary cost increases? Absolutely. We don't know about the long-term grant opportunities that are out there. We know the state of Wisconsin has $48 million over 2 years. That's really all we know right now. And going with this option, it does require the town's commitment to finish the project to each living unit in the township. Option 2, the 2020-21 plan, this is the entire town. Everybody gets the fiber within 2 years. And we just saw a plan, a map that Steve showed. We would address a significant number of residents in year 1. Definitely immediate marketability, and that's a big thing, and we only work on that project for 2 years. The entire cost needs to be assumed over that 2-year period. When we look at that $2.5 million of funding from the PSC over 2 years, we think that that is the absolute maximum. But we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know how many other communities are going to be applying. Could there be more? Maybe, but we don't wanna count on it, because we know that other communities just around us are already chomping at the bit for these types of projects. There'll be more competition in the future for this grant funding. Our opportunity is today. Option 3, doing nothing. The upside is there is not an investment cost. But what are the downsides? There's no opportunity to market the town for new businesses, for different types of businesses. There's no additional speed for our internet needs. Now, one of the issues that we're starting to face is the local cable provider has stopped doing business in the town. Many residents have gone to CenturyLink and said, we need internet now because I lost my internet and I lost my TV, so I want to stream television over the internet. And guess what? These nodes are filling up. And using this DSL technology, the more and more it's used, we will, those of us who use it today, will see our speeds start to decrease. We continue to have reliance upon tourism in the town because we don't have the ability to diversify, lose potential home buyers, people moving into the community, and we know that already just with the school. Because Brent Jaliski has told us at these meetings that he has had families that have decided to go someplace else to live because they couldn't get decent internet for their children. And that's as disadvantaged students. Yes, sir.
Bill, on that previous slide under option 1, it's not listed under either a pro or con, but again, looking at crystal ball, what do we think the lending rates are going to be for the bond fund in future years?
Well, that's a good question. So my wife, I retired from my day job earlier this year. So my wife and I have been, working with a financial person, and we had a conversation last week and asked that same question because that was the day after the Federal Reserve lowered interest rates again. And he said that his organization believes that that's the floor. Now, is he right? Is he wrong? Don't know. But we are in a period of time that most of us in this room have only seen once in our lifetime with these low interest rates. Are they going to continue? I don't know. History says they're going to have to go up at some point. So to your point, if we wait, the interest rates could start going up.
So it would be, in essence, there with the double whammy, the inflation would hit the cost of the project and go up, and then the bond fund is going to go up, so our tax bills are going to go up even more than if we took the vote.
Yeah, that's a point. And then at some point, I asked this question, how many of you think we will not have a recession in the next 4 years? Anybody? Well, that's what the economists think as well. Chuck, you had a question?
Yeah, I just wondering the reasoning in option 1 under the CAF 2 funding potential 2021, but for option 2 is not likely. What's the reasoning?
Yeah, the project commitment would be there with CenturyLink, and so if we're committing to that, we would be committing to that like now. They're going to take their CAF funding elsewhere.
Yeah, I think some of it's the timing of it too, exactly when it becomes available and when you can apply. They're not certain exactly when it's gonna be. They think next fall, winter, but they really don't know. So if it happens soon enough, we could certainly take advantage of it, but we don't know that.
Okay, let's move on. All right, reasons to invest in high-speed broadband. I did some research here, and that's a pretty long list, but really wanted to bucket them, if you will. So the first one has to do with new business. And getting diversified businesses here. No, I'm sorry, the second one is. The first one is about having people stay in Boulder Junction longer. And we've already received, I don't know, how many letters? 20 letters, and many of them are from part-time residents who are property owners and taxpayers who still work, and they want to either move here or spend more time here. That adds money to the economy of Boulder Junction. And for rural communities, especially those that are tied to tourism, that's kind of the number one reason why these communities engage in these types of projects. So that's the first bucket. The second one is to attract new businesses and enhance the existing businesses. This is an important thing because the economy, as we've known it, as most of us I think are baby boomers, as we've known it, it's changing, and it's changing rapidly. Well, how does Boulder Junction then change rapidly? Go down Main Street, you've got empty buildings and buildings for sale. That is space that is just waiting to be filled by new high-tech businesses, consulting companies, people who want to live in a really, really, really great place. And then there's this area about our kids. We've got an excellent school just outside of our township that serves our township. And this is a way, we know that, this is a way to protect that and protect the enrollment and enhance the education for our kids. And the rest is really for you. And you can go down the list and pick one, but we know through studies that having high-speed broadband increases the property values from 5 to 11%. That's a significant thing. And what does that do? That does a couple of things. That expands our tax roll, but it also then helps with getting the new businesses in here, and it almost vertically expands the tax roll, and it horizontally expands the tax roll to kind of ease the burden on us. So before we moved here, we lived in the township of Greenville, which is northwest of Appleton. And they had an industrial park that was, kind of set aside. And what we saw was that really provided tax insulation for us who lived in the country in a development, and it helped significantly. Businesses help residents from a tax perspective. Watching TV. If you have DirecTV, this is an opportunity to throw that thing away and start streaming your television. So that's kind of the basic thing you can do with high-speed internet. Some of us have it in the township today. I should say very few of us have it in the township today. This would give everyone that opportunity. Okay, we gotta hold these things earlier. Any other questions? Gene?
I'm all in favor of progress, first of all. But when you were showing the cost of putting in the systems, there's an assumption of a certain amount of grants being available. And there's that old saying, how do you spell assume? What happens to the town if we go charging full speed ahead and make the commitment, go for this project, and the grants don't come through? That's, what are we then saddled with a lot of potential expenses and either killing the program halfway done, or do we eat the additional expenses of the town? Right. And the second half of this question is, once fiber optics is available to everybody in the town, what is
is that gonna cost me, or what is my advantage, or what does it mean? Right now, I've got the, internet service, which is adequate for my use. And you talked about 54 meg or something, that's what it says I'm getting. Whether I'm getting it or not, I don't know, but it says that I'm getting it on the screen, if you can trust CenturyLink. When this changes over, what is my bill gonna be different? Because they say now I have fiber optics, is my bill gonna be more expensive for the same service that I have now? Or, you know, if I'm not gonna worry about streaming and stuff like that, which I don't even know what the hell that is. So, in my limited mind, I'll have simple internet so that I can email friends and my phone, my landline phone. Will that bill go up or down when I have?
Well, I don't know what you pay today, but what we've seen with the costing from CenturyLink, and what was it, 2 weeks ago, they were running a deal where it was $65 a month, correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, for a gigabit of service. So that's probably about what you're paying today.
No, I'm paying about $110 for a telephone and the internet.
That's a lot. So
And
your
sure
bill
as hell
will
is
go down.
considered, I don't even use the telephone that much. I make two phone calls a month maybe.
Well, we've got a bargain for you.
Yeah, that would be great. Anything that would.
Yeah, so it's
CenturyLink.
and this is what we're seeing with, and it's not just CenturyLink, it's these big telcos. When you get in and you sign up, you know, you might sign up at one of their deals, right? So maybe you signed up, it was $50 a month. And then after that contractual period, then all of a sudden it goes up. And we're seeing that with individuals, with subscribers, where their bill is a lot more than what we're seeing that it'll cost with fiber optic. And it sounds like you're one of them.
Yeah, but going back to my first question, if this grants don't come through.
Yeah, and that's a valid question. Let's talk about the process. We're gonna cover this in next steps, but this is a good way to do it right now. We're gonna ask you for your feedback here in a few minutes, like we've done in previous sessions. We're taking that feedback and we're giving that information to our board, okay, so they know kind of the direction, the thought process of the residents. That's gonna lead us to Thursday's electors meeting. There's gonna be a special electors meeting, and at that special electors meeting, there's gonna be an advisory vote. Maybe 2 votes, okay? What that advisory vote is gonna say is, do you wanna go with option 1 or option 2? Yes or no? And then when we select, that's going to then move it to a resolution phase. And that resolution phase, which would need to be adopted by the town board, that gives us this document that we need to submit the grant. That's the next step. So Gene, to answer your question, if we don't get the grant, what do? We'll be right back in this room making a decision about what Boulder Junction does going forward. Do we scale the project for something that whets our appetite, or is the town committed to go forward with or without the grant? We don't know at this point, but that's what we're looking at. So it would be, at least what we're doing here in this process that we're gonna be doing on Thursday night, will be dependent upon the success of the PSC grant. Does that answer your question?
Sort of, yeah.
No, I want to answer your question because that's an important one. Let me answer it another way.
Bill, you may want to tell him when the grant is due.
The grant is due at 4 p.m. on December 19th. That's when we have to submit. Our goal is to submit that thing a week before, so we have some slop time in case something goes wrong. The PSC will then go back, they'll review their grants, they have a commission that will score and vote on those things. We'll probably hear in the February, March timeframe. So So we'll be in a waiting game for a while, and then once we hear, we'll be back in this room, talking to you, giving you the updated information, and then we're gonna have to make that last decision about what do we do to move forward.
Bill, just to be clear, on Thursday night, there will be two votes. The first vote will be question, do you want to move forward with broadband expansion in Boulder Junction, yes or no? And unless the yeses exceed the noes, you're not gonna have a second vote. So if you want to move forward with broadband expansion in Boulder Junction on Thursday night, you need to express that vote on Thursday evening. Or if you care, if your decision is you don't want to move forward, you need to be present Thursday night and say no. But that's going to be the first vote. Yes or no on moving forward.
The second vote,
Then the second vote would be on option 1 or option 2.
Gene, you still look like you're processing, so when we're finished, why don't you come up and we'll try to fill in some blanks. Okay, anybody else? All right, feedback. We're going to do another survey. Steve and Dennis are going to send these out. If I could ask, if you're not a resident, a taxpayer, a business owner, or an employee of a business, don't fill it out, okay? But if you are a resident, a taxpayer, a business owner, an employee of a business, please give us your feedback. And to review, we have option 1, that's that 2020 plan, the partial towns. Option 2 is the entire township in 2 years. And option 3, you don't support the investment in high-speed broadband.
Yeah, as long as you're tax rate. In this one, we can't vote on the electric.
When you've completed your voting, just fold it over and I'll collect your ballots.
Okay, let me go over one more slide and then we'll get you out of here. The next steps, the November 14th special electors meeting here at the community center at 6 p.m. Please come. If we secure funding commitment, then that grant gets submitted and we'll continue to tighten the project details with CenturyLink. We're gonna solicit all other grant funding, foundation funding, and we've gotten some donations and some grants already. Okay, this is private stuff.
oh my God. So
And
we're not
then-
next week?
It's really about getting that final sign off and then preparing for construction. Let me do this, because he won't be here. Steve Kuhn has been the point on this project, and he has worked day and night. He won't be here, with us on Thursday night, but I'd like to, just love to recognize Steve. Steve, thank
So, you wanna let them know who can vote at the electors meeting? I had that question today at the post office. A resident of the town, but they don't have to be a voter. So, if they can prove residency with a bill or their driver's license, then they can vote.
All right, so let's clarify so everybody heard. Who can vote at the electors meeting? A resident of the township. But you don't have to be a registered voter. Did I say that right?
Right.
Okay, all right, thank you for that add.
And we will have a poll list.
And there will be a poll list.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And to clarify, I'm from the town of Presque Isle, doesn't, residence is maybe not enough, strong enough word, it's a property owner.
No,
Because
it's a resident
a
for.
taxpayer, let's, for example, you got a part-time resident up here who's paying taxes on their property. And they live part-time in Chicago. My understanding is they too can vote
Yes.
as a property.
That's my
Because they're
understanding.
not residents, but they are property owners.
True.
That's not a subtle difference.
They're a taxpayer,
Yeah.
Oh,
yes. Taxpayer for that.
all right, we need
Just saying.
clarification on that. We need clarification on that.
Okay. I'll find out
Okay,
before.
yes. Okay. All right, anything else before we finish up?
We don't get to vote.
Okay, thank you for coming. Stay warm tonight.
Thank you. Good job, Bill. Thank you.